guys, it's Carl, and we finally have all of the Pixel 6 embargo reviews finally, I guess, over with. This is my review and my thoughts of using Google's latest flagship now almost for the past week, and I will start off by saying I am super impressed. And if this is your first video you're watching about the Pixel 6, it did of course come in this nifty box. Of course, all the unboxing videos are done, but just in case, you've got a very thin box design. Very simple stuff inside, just like most phones now. Unfortunately, it does not come with a charging brick. Google does give you a little USB-C to USB-A dongle, of course, the actual charging cable itself, and all of your user manuals and warranty info, and that is it. We'll start off with what you interact with the phone the most, and maybe the most striking feature about the phone is the design. So we've seen the leaks, we've seen all the rumors, it's pretty much how they envision them. It's still really interesting though. When we take a look around, it's got this very interesting Cyclops, Daft Punk sort of look on the back, and it's so different from anything that we've seen come out in the past couple years. If you've taken a look at any smartphone, they all have very typical camera designs. You've got the camera sensors either on the right, left-hand side, you've got the multiple different sensors. Google has changed things up and kind of introduced them all into this one little glass panel on the back. The colorway which I've got here, which is my personal favorite, is the cloudy white. So it's a bit of off-white. It kind of fits the theme that I've got going on in the studio, and it's super clean. And when you first pick it up, it's premium. And when we've looked at other Google devices before, they've always made that sacrifice to keep, I guess, the price kind of down. This feels like a flagship device. And on the 6 Pro, you've got the stainless steel around the outside, you've got all of the glass on the back, and it feels hefty, it feels great, and I love it. The one thing I would say is a tad bit weird, I still kind of haven't got used to yet, is the position of the volume rocker / on and off button. That's actually switched in comparison to all other devices. So usually you see the on and off button on the bottom, volume rocker kind of on top, and it's weird. When you hold it, my thumb does rest on the volume rocker, and you know, I think that's just something that maybe in a month, maybe 2 months, I'll kind of get over. I still find that I am accidentally pressing that volume button, which I guess isn't the biggest deal breaker. The second thing, with that Cyclops design, you kind of get a benefit when the phone is down on the table. You don't get any weird rocking when you're kind of interacting with it, but it does collect a ton of dust, a ton of lint. I'm sure in some macro shots you can already see how much gunk we've included. If you do like to rock things naked, just don't have any OCD-ness because that will drive you crazy, or you can always throw a deeper end skin on it. I'll leave that one up to you. And I know this video is around the 6 Pro, but just in case you are wondering, the 6 comes in at a cheaper price point, so $599 compared to the $899. This just has a larger display, 6.7 inches LTPO, so it has that adaptive screen rate. You can go all the way down to 10 to 120 hertz, depending on how you're interacting with the display. It's vibrant, it's nice. We've pretty much got no bezels. The only thing you have, the little hole punch cutout for the front-facing camera. More on that in a second. And you do have the slightly curved glass for the 6 Pro, which once again, I don't think that's a deal breaker, but it does go pretty much the entire front of the panel. And the second big thing coming to the Pixel phones is actually what's on the inside now, and they're kind of following in the footsteps of Apple, building their own in-house silicon. They've now built the new Tensor chip. And obviously when you've got everything built in-house, all their engineers can kind of make things work better together. So the experience is completely new. It's the same chip found on the 6 and 6 Pro, and you just get the 12 gigs of RAM in the Pro model just for some extra snappiness. Honestly, I haven't really noticed a performance difference. And with that new chip, Google is just able to do more, and maybe that's at the expense of Qualcomm and Snapdragon, but things like speech recognition. So a really awesome thing which I've been doing solely on my Pixel now, texting is now a game changer with the new speech input. So for example, I'm gonna start up a quick little text here, holding down the speech button. So Nick, I'm going to say on this video, let's go watch James Bond tomorrow at 4 p.m. It's so effing good. We really need to make a reservation, and yeah, this keyboard, or I guess this speech recognition, is pretty awesome. This is by far the best speech recognition, and it's almost replaced the way that I text now, because I think most of us are used to texting, what, for the past decade? This is so much faster than anything I can type out on a keyboard. Google Assistant now, machine learning is so much better, and already Google Assistant was the best voice assistant. It has now just taken it to the next level. Siri, sadly, is still pretty trash, and Bixby, RIP. Another big thing Tensor helps out with is the computational photography, which is what Google is really famous for their cameras. But previously on their Pixel phones, it would always be that same 12 megapixel sensor. We finally have new hardware on the back, which is I think what most people have been excited for. So 50 megapixel main, 48 megapixel telephoto, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide, all in that Daft Punk visor. The camera has lived up to its hype. It is, I would argue to say, the best camera that you can currently get on a smartphone. Heard it here first. The photos are coming out great, dynamic range is really good, and that computational photography from Google just makes each image look really good. Color reproduction is great, and I know that Google spent a lot of time on True Tone, which helps people of color to reproduce or accurately produce their skin tone colors. I'll even leave a couple photos compared to the 13 Pro Max, which I know a lot of people regard as the best camera system, but the Google is definitely giving it a run for its money, and video-wise, stabilization is great. Once again, colors are really good. I would say that's on par with the iPhone. So if you're on the fence for either device, I think the only thing that would sway you in the direction is actually the operating system. If you're already team iPhone, then yeah, the iPhone's an easy choice. But if you want an Android device, we do have a phone that can actively compete to the iPhone's camera system. More in-depth features camera-wise, we've got night sight, and I will say this is maybe the best night camera currently out. It takes better photos than the iPhone. My favorite new camera feature is actually motion, which has its own dedicated camera page, and it's giving that background effect like you've got an item in motion. I guess that's where they got the name from. So for example, I took a couple shots of cars passing by. When you do have that enabled, it gives that really interesting background effect. Of course, it's computational. It isn't perfect. There were a couple shots. I'll show an example of a biker that was going by. It did have a bit of a hard time discerning the edges, but for the most part, for a simple point and shoot, you don't have to wait long on the subject. You can just quickly snap on the shutter. You get some pretty awesome results coming out of a smartphone. You've still got portrait, panorama, and photosphere, and a couple other little features, but I think if you're coming to the Pixel, definitely give motion a try. It is kind of worth the hype. And once again, Google claims that it is all to do with that Tensor chipset to enable a lot of these new features. To the front-facing camera, which is actually the area where I've kind of been let down the most by, they have brought back the ultra-wide selfie, so if you just tap the 0.7, you'll get a bit of a larger or wider view. I have found though that the selfie photos, I think everyone snaps them, these look the softest out of all of them, and I'm not too sure if that can be improved in a software update. I'll quickly take one here. I'll let you guys be the judge. The next thing to talk about is the battery, which I think is another reason to grab the 6 Pro. So you get 5,000 milliamps, and according to Google, it is an adaptive battery, which essentially means it adjusts the battery life depending on your usage of the phone, which kind of just translates to how heavy or how lightly you're using your device. So initially in this past week, obviously I've been on this almost every single day. I'm averaging around 5.5, 6 hours of screen on time. I am easily getting into my second day, so around a day and a half. If you are a light user, I could easily say, or you could easily get by 2 days usage. And maybe the most important thing, which I think a lot of us sometimes overlook or take for granted, the main reason why you're getting a Pixel phone is for the Pixel experience. So of course you've got stock Android. Now with the updated Material UI, it is a lot more customizable and actually kind of reminds me of Nova Launcher, kind of back in the day for all you Android tinkerers. You get so many more customization options. So for example, you now have themed icons, still in beta mode, but still works fairly well. So I've got an orange wallpaper, so all of my icons now and menu systems are in that orange theme. If I were to change that to say a blue wallpaper, we can now see everything has kind of changed over and we've got all our blue notification bells and all of our blue icons. So something super cool, it's super clean, and because that's all built in, you don't need to install something like Nova Launcher. So RIP to you, you were good while it lasted. And as we round off this review, I know this is a new device, but one last thing to kind of keep in mind, we also have the new M2 Titan chip, and that combined with Tensor means you'll get 5 years of security updates to your phone. So that's always good to keep in mind, and that's also the same security that Google uses in their own HQ. So super cool. And I will say Google absolutely smashed it out of the park this year with both the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, my preferred device. If you were on the fence about upgrading, there is no better time. If you were on the fence between this and the iPhone, I think that only comes down to software OS choice. The Pixel 6, I will say, is the best Android phone that I've currently used, and I do love that Pixel is now building all of their in-house silicon, which just means their devices will perform better. Anyways, that's gonna be my full review of the Pixel 6. If you wanna see any other comparisons, I can put this up against my iPhone. I think a lot of you wanna see that, especially some of the camera comparisons. I guess you guys will have to stay tuned. I'll catch the rest of you in one of my next vids. Peace.